Well, hello everyone and welcome to Painless Universal Conversation with myself and Welsh. Well, today we'll be talking all about the self-love pain. Why do so many people find it so hard to love themselves? Yeah, what is really self-love? Does it really exist? Is it important? And why do we need to make it a vital point in our life? I'll be talking to Jessica Clarke. Jessica is a certified relationship and self-love coach, working with women to reframe their relationship stories with others and within themselves. She used her own experience of deep pain in relationships, but put it into purpose building a coach business based upon the belief that the light will always shine through. You know, that belief that there's always light at the end of the tunnel. So she turns her pain in a relationship to purpose. Jessica has previously worked in the philanthropy sectors and is an advocate for survivors of domestic abuse. She'll tell us why she did this. Living in London, she has helped clients, and she still does, navigate the ever-complex phenomenon of the modern-day relationships and to encourages them to put themselves back in the driving seat. I am super excited, and the reason I am is that with the pandemic, so many women took a beating from this pandemic. We took a beating in our relationship. So a lot of women were forced to go back in the passenger seats and they lost their voice through this whole pandemic. This whole conversation is talking about how you can find your self-love again. Not self-love for the future, not self-love for the past, but self-love for yourself today. Meet our guest, Jessica. Well, hello everyone and welcome again to Painless Universal, a conversation with myself and Welsh. We have Jessica Clarke. As I said in the introduction, she's an amazing woman who has done great things in helping women, especially because I think we women always need that drive. We always need that, that uplifting, something that just tells us today will be a better day. Because sometimes we always have that self-doubt in ourselves. You're all about this self-love relationship. How are you in a relationship and get that self-love, Jessica? I love your journey. I love your story. I love everything you've done. But before we get into all of that, can you tell us a little bit about who you are? And thank you so much for joining me on this conversation.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. So yes, as you said, I'm Jessica. Hello. I am a life coach working primarily with women around, as you said, around relationships and looking at the way that relationships have affected us, but also the way that we interact with others as well. So it's sort of two-dimensional there. I am also a self-development junkie. I think we are always learning, always evolving, and I just love that side of things. And I'm just a really big advocate for women turning their pain into a purpose. And that is something which I have lived by for a very long time. And my biggest mission, is so that women can see hope at the end of the tunnel, whatever their dark places look like. My mission is, even if one woman says, you help me see the light, that is my life made. Because I think there is so much power in being able to overcome things. And we've all been through dark places. So that's my mission, really, that just one person can see some hope out there.
One of the ways I get inspired is when I look and listen to someone's story, and one of your stories, because you didn't just do this, say, I want to just get on and start helping women. You've been through your own dark side, your own journey. Could you just tell us a little bit about your journey? You don't have to go into so much of it, but what led you on this path?
Yeah, it's something which, to be honest, I don't talk about that much. But actually, when I was 17, I grew up in Edinburgh, which is a very, very white, middle class, safe, lovely little place. Nothing bad ever really happens there. And I remember coming home from school one day and my mum wasn't there, which is a bit odd. And it transpires that my sister had been raped. And it was that moment in my life which I had no idea as a 17-year-old that that happened to people, let alone someone that I knew. And from that moment, it just created a series of events that I thought, you know what, bad things do happen to everyone, and they happen within our close bubbles. And yeah, it just made me think, you know what, I can do something about this. And my sister said something, years later, she said that I had said to her, I don't know when, but I promise you things will get better. And she said that that was a moment that changed things around from her. And I just thought, how could a 17-year-old think of something like that to say? And I think I knew I had it within me, that it was my purpose to support women and encourage women. And just since then, I've had this spark within me, and everything that I've done throughout my studies and also just through being a friend, I've always been that someone who wants to bring other people up. So that's sort of where it started.
Yeah.
And then throughout my own journey, I don't quite put a label on it, but I have been a survivor of domestic abuse, and also, I suppose, a victim of revenge porn. In all of its technicalities, it's quite intricate, and it's something which really breaks you down as a woman. And actually, I thought to myself, I can do something about this and turn it into something and give it purpose. Your pain doesn't have to consume you. And so I think through all of those different events that have happened, I thought, you know what, I can use this. And I always knew I wanted to work with women, as I said, but I didn't know about coaching. And so then I discovered coaching, and I thought, this is the missing link. And so there I started my own business, and the rest is history, I suppose.
I love when you said your pain doesn't have to consume you. Your pain, you try and turn your pain into purpose. I think, for me, in all my life, I've been through so much kind of pain. I've been through chronic illness pain. I've been through shaming pain. I've been through abuse pain, all kinds of pain. But sometimes I used to think back in the days that I should let the pain consume me. I should let the pain define me. But I realized, no, you should not let your pain define you, and your pain should try and be a purpose, and you've just done that, and you're doing it in a brilliant way. But one thing I love about you, and I'll have to ask you this as a question, is that you focus on women, especially relationship stories and connecting your inner passion. So why is that such a big thing in when you focus on that kind of stuff? When you focus on, because that's a niche area to focus on, to relationship stories, connecting your inner passion. Why did you solely focus a lot on that area?
I think it's because a lot of the time, and this is not just from personal experience, this is also well with my clients, a lot of the time in relationships, as women, we are natural caregivers, and we give so much of ourselves. Even if a relationship is failing, going downhill, it's natural for us to keep on giving, keep on trying. And often within that, I speak with so many people who completely have lost themselves within those relationships. And when that relationship ends, they're sort of left with all of the pain and thinking, I have no idea who I am. And that, I think, I've been there, and it's the hardest thing, where you look around you and you think, my whole identity was based in that relationship, and people don't know what they have inside themselves anymore because they've been hidden from it for so long. And I think that, for me and for so many others, is the missing link of saying, well, actually, who am I? What is it that I am passionate about? What is this fire inside of me? And helping them to reconnect with that is so powerful. And it gives me goosebumps even thinking about it. Just when people say, oh my gosh, that's that is what's inside of me. That's the passion that I have. And it can completely change whatever direction they choose to go in next.
You're very, very particular about it's time to rewrite the story. So rather than we women keeps crying and saying we're victims, but you are changing that narrative, and you even say in your interviews that and it's time to rewrite the story. Why did your own story of pain shape your approach, in the way you coach?
Gosh, well, that's a big question. I think the first thing is that I probably spent 3 or 4 years letting my circumstances define me. And I just kind of, felt like someone who was like floating in the wind, just letting things happen. And it took me a very, very long time to realize I actually have a choice in this. I actually am leading my life. And I think that for me was the reason that I was able to even start my business, is because eventually something within me said, I have control of this. And I think that's why I choose very much to lead with that in my coaching, is it just helps people to realize that no matter what happens, they do have control of some things. And, of course, there are so many things in life which circumstances happen, bad things do happen. But actually, if we focus on the things that we can control and we can take responsibility for, it's a really, really empowering experience. And it also helps us to focus more on where we are going rather than all of the negativity that says where we aren't going.
Yeah. So how do you find passion in coaching? Because so many people do different roles and they don't find that passion because they just feel, oh, this is just it. But I see you do yours and you do it so well that you have turned it into a really good business. How do you find that passion in doing what you love?
I think the biggest thing in any business or any work is finding your kind of that sweet spot of, yes, your business has to make you money, but actually, if you don't wake up in the morning and think, oh my gosh, I've got that meeting, I'm so excited, in my mind, it's not worth doing. Yeah. And I think there are so many people, and I was one of them, who spent a lot of time just getting on with my day-to-day, and it wasn't bringing me joy. And in fact, it was almost sucking the energy out of me, and I was losing my creativity, I was losing my passion. And I think for me, the biggest thing about coaching is connecting with other people. And we might think in our business meetings we're connecting with others, but actually often we spend 5 minutes being like, oh, how was the weather? How was your weekend? Things like that. And we miss the basic human need for real connection. And I think that's the biggest thing for me that I get through coaching, is I'm just so passionate about connecting with people and helping them to see their true potential. And so I suppose, in answer to your question, what is there not to be passionate about? Because it's just, it brings so much life, not just to me, but also to my clients. And when I see that, yeah, it's just incredible.
Yeah, no, I I like that, because it's true. When you do something you truly, truly love, waking up in the morning, it's no longer a chore. It's like, oh gosh, I'm going to do this. And you're bringing so much joy to so many people. It's not like, okay, you're doing it just for yourself or just to make money from the business. You're also doing something that will be a stepping stone for someone else's life. Your advice, and I loved it when I read this, plan your life like there is no man. And you said this is one of the best advice you have been given. Plan your life like there is no man. And I think so many people, we've been taught this, that, okay, it depends, what upbringing you have. Oh, you should plan your life like, oh, you're going to get married, which is nice. We should all plan like that. But at the same time, we never thought the other side. What if you don't have all of this? Plan your life like there's no one. Why is this the best advice that you've been given?
Yes, I think part of it was also about when I was given the advice. So actually, it was by a former mentor of mine who, I think she was late 60s, 70s, really passionate, wild woman, just amazing, but also a very, very astute businesswoman. And she had been through so much pain in her life. and she was now happily married again. And she said, you know, especially for her, throughout her whole life, she had been taught, you are going to get married, you're going to have children, you're going to stay at home and serve the family. And I think, irrelevant of what our parents teach us, that is something which we believe almost to be true. We never really second guess that. And I was at a point in my life where I'd just gone through leaving that abusive relationship. And I thought to myself, there is no way I can do that again, and all of that pain. But at the same time, everything in life is telling me that I have to go through another relationship. And she said, it was almost as a question. She said, what if there is no man? What are you going to do with your life? And it's something which I had never, ever, ever thought about. I thought everyone dates, everyone wants to get married, everyone wants a partner. And it had never occurred to me that it was an option. Mm. And so I think that's when it became really interesting, because I'd never thought about it. And actually, I think there does get to a point where even if you do think, I'm going to get married, I'm going to have children, well, then what happens when you're, 50s, 60s, children have left home? What are you going to do with the next 30, 40 years of your life? Mm. Life doesn't end when you have children. And so it made me think, yeah, what is life beyond that? And it really made me think, what am I going to do for me? Where do I want my life to go? And actually, it also helped me reframe, I can do all of this stuff, and a man and a family would be a complementary to it. It would be an added bonus, an added extra, rather than that being the purpose of life. Mm-hmm. And it just helps me, especially now, to live my life for me rather than living in the waiting, and just waiting for a family to come about, because we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I think I read somewhere the other day, in London, the average age to get married is now 36. So I've still got a long time until that happens. So what am I going to do? Wait in London, dating around for the next 10 years?
No, yeah, it's true, because so I see so many of my single girls, and some of them are so desperate. And you in the process, you forget to live the moment, because you live in the life of chasing. Oh, I want to find this perfect guy, and then in the process of just not enjoying the process, you forget the view. The view's gone past you. Yeah. You're now a certain age, and you can't remember what happened from A to B, because all you remember is I was desperate, and you're still at the same point. So when I saw that quote, I saw why you see that as a critical thing, especially for women. Women need to understand that, because all our lives we've been taught that someone just gave me 4 aspects of life. You graduate, and after graduating, said, what do you do next? He says, you get married. What do you do next? You have kids. What do you do next? I'm like, whoa, all this tied down on women.
And it's always concentrating on what's next, what's next.
Yeah, it's never enough.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Exactly that. I was actually talking with my sister this morning, and we were saying, you get a nice car, and a week after you've got that nice car, you start thinking about the next nice car you're going to get.
Yes.
And unless you can find yourself where you're happy, just observing and appreciating what you have now, you'll always be chasing what's next. And in my opinion, that's no way to live, because there are so many incredible things around us now, which we just take for granted, ignore, because we're constantly striving for something else.
That is truly amazing. If you don't appreciate now, how would you? Oh gosh, that's truly amazing. I love what you just said there. Thank you for sharing that. You teach self-love. Self-love for me is very vague and very, very self-descriptive, because it says self, me, love. But a lot of people have a misconception about what is self-love. So I really love you, Jessica, to help me understand, what is self-love? How is it important? And why is it important? And how can I learn self-love? Now, 3 questions. What is it?
Yes.
Why? And how can I learn self-love? Because these are 3 things which we take so much for granted. And a lot of people, the key thing is that people don't know what it is. So, Jessica, please help me. What is self-love?
Yeah, I think it's such a sort of woo-woo new age expression of love yourself. But actually, I think the key to it is we are all flawed human beings. We all have amazing things about us, but we all have dark places.
Yeah.
And I think a misconception about self-love is that you have to just shroud yourself in love, even if it's the bad things, just ignore the bad things, just love yourself. And actually, I think there's a stage before that, which is self-acceptance. And that is saying, I am who I am. These are my good things. These are the things that I struggle with. And these are the things that I'm working on. And I think often we think that the bad things we need to heal, we need to move away from, we need to kind of rip them out of us. And actually, I think the key thing is saying, that's still a part of me. My good times don't define me. My bad times don't define me. It's who I am right now in all of that. And for me, self-love is very much a place of saying, this is all of me. It requires a respect, a very simple love. And I think it's something that I talk about quite often is there is very big, passionate, vivacious love, which has its time, it has its purpose. But I think self-love is almost like a quiet, sort of dove on the shoulder. It's a very peaceful place where you say, no matter what is happening around me, I have this quiet understanding within myself that these are my bad things, these are my good things, and I am accepting who I am, and I'm working on who I am, but also I can love who I am right now. And I think it's a journey, and I think that's why it's so important. It's not somewhere that we get to and we say, I love myself, that's it, I'm done. Yeah. It's actually a journey that we constantly go on because we constantly evolve. And so I think that's why it's so important, because it's not a destination. It's something that we have to work on and we have to practice. And it's sort of a ritual that we even have to go through on a daily basis. You wake up and choose to say, today's going to be a good day. This is maybe what's gone wrong today, but I still choose to love myself despite that. So I think that answers, does that answer your question?
Yeah, that answers all of my questions. I think is because you understand, you told me why is it important. Some habits like self-love that women should have. What would you say some of the habits we should adopt in our life to practice self-love?
I think the biggest thing is being self-aware. And I know that sounds like, oh, that's an odd kind of habit, but actually we spend so long doing stuff that actually we don't observe our habits. Yeah. And actually it's something which, it might sound quite cheesy, but on a regular basis, I write down, these are the things I do on a regular basis which help me to feel good. And those are things I want to do more of. So for me, that's, getting out in nature. And for most of my clients, that's a big thing, just appreciating nature. But it's also writing down the habits which I have, which are my place of self-sabotage, a little bit of self-destruction. And it's about understanding those. Where do they come from? What trauma am I carrying? What hurt am I carrying, which makes me do those things? And I think that's, even if you do that exercise once a month, you will be surprised a little bit how kinder you are to yourself each time. Yeah. Because you say, okay, I do this and it's bad, but actually, where is it coming from? It's coming from a place of hurt. We're not intrinsically bad people. We do bad things from places of hurt. And I think once you identify them, it helps. So that's something which I think is a really key exercise to do. And then secondary, I think the biggest thing is knowing where you create safety, and whether that's you're a safe person who you talk to about everything, you have a laugh with them, they make you feel comfortable, or whether it's having a safe place that you go to. So whether that's you have your favorite walk and on that walk there's a bench you love, or maybe it's, I have this perfect cozy spot in my house somewhere. It's just that place that you can go to where you can love, reflect, and sit in your safety. And I think often people think self-love is a bath and a spa day. But actually, that's quite surface level. And yes, we do need that. It makes us feel good about ourselves. But if you don't feel good on the inside, you're just masking it by the outside as well.
That's very true. Yeah, because sometimes we always think, oh, well, I'm just go on a holiday and get it out, and when I come back, everything will be better. And you come back, it's still give it a few more days, you're back to the same anger,
Yeah.
everything. Can we have when you're in a relationship, especially this is for people who are much younger, who are in a relationship, do you think self-love in a relationship is important for couples or for new couples? Do you think is important?
Yeah. And what's interesting is I've actually done quite a lot of market research recently, asking people about what makes a flourishing relationship. And every single one of them said the key to a healthy, happy relationship is knowing who you are first and taking time for yourself first. And I do think there's this cheesy quote somewhere which says, if you can't love yourself, how are you going to love someone else? And
it's true.
It is true. And I think we often run to a relationship as a place to fix us, to look after us. They're going to solve our problems, or we're going to solve their problems. But actually, yes, every relationship is two broken people coming together, but actually you're a whole person before you go into that relationship. And you have to remain a whole person of who you are. And if you're relying on someone else, you will lose your identity. And I think that's the key to why self-love is so important, is because it keeps you as you. You're not going to lose yourself if you value yourself and you know who you are. And I think that's why it's so important, whether you're single, whether you're in a relationship, whether you've been married for a long time, it's actually, I know who I am and I stand very firm in that, because it makes arguments easier, it makes compromise easier, it makes all of these really tough things in any circumstance easier because you can stand for yourself.
Yes. Looking back, what would you tell your young 18-year-old self?
That's a big one. Gosh, I mean, there's so many things.
Oh gosh, I'm sure.
I think there's kind of 2 points. One of them is more like a kind of trivial, whimsical thing, which is probably saying that relationships, sex, interactions with men only gets better as you get older. We all remember probably the first times of most things, and they weren't so great. So I would definitely tell her, please do not worry, everyone gets better. But then I think on a more serious note, I think the biggest thing is that we will all have dark times in life. But I will promise her, and I will promise every 18-year-old that there is always a light at the end. The darkness will not overcome the light. The light will always shine through. I would say that to 18-year-old, 50-year-old, any-year-old. I think that is something to hold on to forever.
My final question, Jessica, right? Advice to a girl aspiring to be strong and independent, but not sure how. What would be your advice to this young girl who's looking to be this?
I think the biggest thing would be to know yourself and write down, I suppose, your core sort of non-negotiables in life, and your core values that you have. And I think that does sound kind of easier said than done, but I think there will be values that you've learned from your parents, values that you've learned from school, from friends, that really hold steadfast to who you are now and what you want to take forward. And I think if you can carry those values in your actions, your words, and everything that you do, you will never be able to get swerved off course. And I think that's the key thing, is knowing what these values are and never compromising on them, because as soon as you get kind of swayed by the wind a little bit, you will start to lose who you are. But if you hold steadfast to those values and live by them, I think that's the key to kind of building whoever you want to be later on in life.
Wow, Jessica, thank you so much for this conversation. I mean, anyone who will listen to this will learn so much about themselves, will find that their joy, that, and also most importantly for me, my own self, I've taken that loving yourself is so important. And also there's always light at the end of the tunnel, even though you
Mm,
cannot see it. And it doesn't matter what you've been through in a relationship. There's always going to be dark side, but you can always come out of it if you
yeah,
truly find your joy. Thank you.
yeah. No, thank you, Anne.
Thank you so much. I really enjoy this. I would and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
No, thank you so much.